be brought to the glory of his resurrection through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda, DZKI-IRIGA, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
CNN Philippines Hour sa RPN-DZKI-IRIGA alas 6 hasta alas 7 ng manggi, Lunes hanggang Biyernes. CNN Philippines Hour.
The vaccine experts panel, immunologist Dr. Martin Gies shared a recent study that shows a regular Moderna booster shot and an Omicron-specific Moderna vaccine have nearly the same antibody levels produced in monkeys. The antibody level from the primary doses of Moderna vaccines against the Omicron variant declines at the 6th week of getting fully vaccinated. A further significant decline was noted after 41 weeks. The antibody levels increased by tenfold after a third Moderna shot.
It suggests here that you don't need to have an Omicron-specific vaccine just to be able to kill the Omicron variant. Okay na yung original Moderna vaccine lang yung gamitin mo kasi it's also already enough to provide you high antibody titers. And in fact, mas mataas pa siya ng konti kaysa dito sa binigyan mo ng Omicron-specific vaccine.
Giz also says a separate study on monkeys showed the benefits of Moderna vaccines in reducing the viral load on infected patients. No virus was detected on vaccinated monkeys on the 8th day of the infection. But Giz clarifies these studies need further validation, including human trials. Meanwhile, infectious diseases specialist Dr. Jean Solante reminds the public COVID-19 cases could still rise again. That's why everyone who is eligible are encouraged to get boosted.
Yung nakatanggap ng primary vaccine series, it's not enough protection. You need the booster. Now, if you want to transition to a lesser alert level and you want to be protected, that should be the current focus now, especially the vulnerable population.
Another LRT station opens for COVID-19 vaccination. Commuters also lined up to get their shots at the Antipolo station of LRT2. Vaccination is available there every Wednesday and Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Its Recto station is also open for inoculation every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. Vaccinees are urged to pre-register online so screeners can provide them the appropriate vaccine brand. Registration sites are flashed on your screens. While vaccinations prevent severe to critical infection, a study from the United States reveals people with COVID-19 may be prone to long-term cardiovascular diseases. A study from the journal Nature Medicine shows those with prior COVID-19 infections are over 60% more likely to develop heart complications. The risk was found in all ages, sexes, races, and cardiac risk factors like smoking, high blood pressure, and obesity. The study, however, was done in January last year before vaccines became widely available. Global headlines now. U.S. President Joe Biden imposing tough sanctions on Moscow over what he calls, quote, the beginning of a Russian invasion into Ukraine. The first tranche of sanctions will be against 2 financial institutions and Russian sovereign debt. Biden says he will also impose sanctions on Russian elites and their family members and will not go easy on Russia if they go further with the invasion. Ukraine, however, says these sanctions are not enough.
No sanctions will be enough until Russian boots withdraw from Ukrainian soil. This is fundamental principle that we have to keep putting pressure on Russia. And we in Ukraine proceed from the fact that the sanctions announced today by President Biden is just the beginning of the process of deterring President Putin and making him withdraw. That's why I said in the press conference that we like what we saw today, but it certainly won't be enough, and this strategy has to be continued.
Australia, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the European Union also imposed major financial and economic sanctions against Russia after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered in troops into two pro-Moscow regions in eastern Ukraine. With the looming war between Russia and Ukraine, the government ramps up efforts to bring home Filipino nationals from the Eastern European country. But as Tristan Odalo tells us, many of them still insist they want to stay in Ukraine for now.
It's wait-and-see situation for many Filipinos living in Ukraine amid the escalating tensions and the threat of war between the Eastern European country and Russia. Despite warnings of a full-scale invasion from Moscow, some images of calm and normalcy in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital. Filipina Rhea Taibov said it would be difficult for her to leave her Ukrainian husband and daughter.
To be honest po, na rin po ako, parang feeling very terrible. Kasi hindi ko alam ano yung mangyayari. Ngayon po, talagang okay kami dito, normal po, as wala. Hindi naman po nag-start gulo na sinasabi nila na mag-start po ng February 16. And then sabi nila, Sunday. So, everyday po iba-iba.
Rhea says most of her Filipino friends in Ukraine also want to stay for now despite the uncertainty of the situation.
Hindi po sila uuwi unless mandatory evacuation or mandatory na daw po na ng embassy, na pauwiin po ng embassy.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin Jr. says their primary concern is to take Filipinos in Ukraine out of harm's way. The government is trying to bring them to the nearest sanctuaries the fastest possible way. OWA Chief Hans Kakdak adds that they are closely monitoring the situation on the ground and that in-country relocation is underway.
Sa ngayon, wala pa naman report ng naglalabanan ng mga military forces. Basta ang sinasagawa ngayon is in-country relocation ng mga OFWs. At least 3 batches of OFWs have been relocated to safer ground.
Kakdak says the government is also offering free flights to those who want to come home.
Sa ngayon, nag-offer din ng free commercial flights, free plane tickets ang DFA, and may lima nang nakarating ng Biyernes ng gabi, may 2 na tinanggap yung offer ng DFA particular to free plane tickets, free flights.
An international relations and security analyst says they are anticipating 2 scenarios in Ukraine should all diplomatic efforts fail.
Isa sa mga likelihood na scenario ay magkaroon ng civil war sa Ukraine. So, yung civil war will become the proxy war of US and Russia. Ang isa pang possible scenario ay talagang magkaroon ng direct confrontation between NATO countries led by the US and Russian forces using Ukraine as the battleground. At pag nangyari yan, baka mag-spill over yan sa wider Europe, and that will create tremendous global economic repercussions.
The analyst adds that the effect of a full-blown Ukraine-Russia war could also be felt in the Philippines. Apart from the geopolitical impact, there's also a worrying economic fallout. Experts say oil and gas prices will reach record highs as the Russian and Ukraine conflict escalates. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
When we come back on Newsnight, 7 vice presidential and 9 presidential candidates set to face off for the first time this weekend, we give you a glimpse of what to expect in the much-awaited political showdown. And find out how you can watch the upcoming BTS concert right here at home. Stay tuned. forward to receiving their subsidy from the government amid rising fuel costs. Did the DOTR give a definite date already?
Well, none so far. What they're only telling us is that the Transportation Department is already coordinating with the Budget and Management Department regarding the release of the 2.5 billion peso fuel subsidies at the soonest possible time. This will come from DOTR's budget under the General Appropriations Act. Every jeepney driver can receive 6,500 pesos. Drivers of bus, UV Express, TNVS, or ride-hailing app vehicles, tricycle, and other types of public transport can get the financial aid as well. This means over 364,000 drivers will now benefit from the subsidies. That's from 136,000 last year.
Kami po sa Kagawaran talagang nagmamadali na po kami implement ito dahil ramdam po namin ang hirap ng ating mga drivers at operators ngayon dahil lalo na pong tumataas ang presyong petroleum products at ayaw naman po natin magtaas din ng pamasahe sa puntong ito dahil nasa pandemya pa tayo at ayaw nating ipasa sa publiko yung gastos dito.
Some lawmakers have been urging transport authorities to release the subsidies immediately. Local fuel prices have gone up for 8 weeks in a row this year, and it doesn't stop there. Industry sources say petroleum companies are expected to implement another round of oil price hike Tuesday next week. Dubai crude, the reference price for Asian market, has reached more than $91 per barrel. That's why transport groups are calling for a 1 to 2 peso fare increase. Transportation Assistant Secretary Steve Pastor, however, says it's up to the LTFRB to decide. He adds that lowering the COVID-19 alert level in Metro Manila should be considered, saying this would mean more passengers and more income for drivers. But for those down the chain, it's easier said than done. Back to you.
Rexon Media there reporting. Well, 75 days before the Filipino votes, research agencies remind everyone not to decide based on results of pre-election surveys. Pulse Asia and Okta Research say surveys are merely snapshots of preferences in a specific period. The groups also caution against surveys making the rounds online, adding that people should look at the methodology to determine whether a survey or a study is reliable.
There are many things that affect the reliability of the survey, and really has to do with the questionnaire, for example, the method that is used in terms of conducting the survey, and the sampling per se is something that's important.
Surveys are there to provide information, but they should not be the basis of your vote. Your vote should be disciplined by ideas, platform, program of your candidates and the parties that you're supporting.
Earlier this week, the University of the Philippines School of Statistics warned against surveys with questionable methodologies, calling them Kalye surveys that ask people on the streets who their preferred candidates are. Now, a look at what some presidential candidates are up to. The Lakas CMD party claims 28 out of 31 mayors in Negros Occidental are backing Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte. It adds all 6 congressional district representatives in the province have also expressed support for the tandem. During the 2016 vice presidential race, Marcos only got 13% of the votes in that province against Leni Robredo's 59%. Farmers in Sumilao, Bukidnon marched with Robredo again, this time in support of her presidential bid. They also rallied behind her VP run in 2016. Back in 2007, Robredo marched with Sumilao farmers to fight for the reclamation of their 144-hectare ancestral land. Senator Manny Pacquiao is pushing for a higher minimum wage to help families deal with rising prices of basic goods. He made the call after visiting 2 wet markets to buy groceries. He says the experience made him realize the minimum wage of 13,000 pesos is no longer enough for an average Filipino family of 4. Senator Ping Lacson denies attacking another candidate when he talks about thieves in government. He maintains he will not participate in mudslinging in the campaign.
So, nung ano lang, habang nasa Baguio kami, tinawagan ako. Sabi sa akin, taga Cebu to pre, pakiusap naman ni baka naman, wag mo namang atakihin. Sabi ko, give me proof na meron akong inattack na presidential candidate. Wala. Pag sinabi kong galit kami sa magnanakaw, galit kami sa magnanakaw. Wala kami sasabing galit kami kung kanino. Walang tao. Kung may tinamaan, hindi namin kasalanan ni Senate President yun.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno is pushing for a number of changes to the Constitution if elected president. These include a region-based Senate, a two-party system, and tandem voting or a single vote for president and vice president. Moreno believes such moves will help unite Filipinos and prevent partisan politics.
Dalawa bawat rehiyon. So that is 34 senators. Ngayon, at least papanatag yung mga taga-Samar, taga-Leyte, o taga Iloilo, o taga Batanes, o taga Tawi-Tawi, na meron silang senador na kapitbahay nila, alam ang kultura, tradisyon at kostumbre nila, o yung kanilang mga pamana, na makikipaglaban sa resources ng gobyerno para dalhin sa kanilang mga relihiyon at kanya-kanyang lugar.
This weekend's back-to-back political showdown, the first presidential and vice presidential debates with an almost complete attendance, will be as exciting and impactful as the CNN Philippines vice presidential debate in 2016, except this time there will be no live audience, adhering to health and safety protocols amid the pandemic. Our senior correspondent David Santos gives us a preview of what to expect.
Inside the debate hall at the University of Santo Tomas, a significantly smaller and socially distanced crowd as part of extra precautions during this pandemic. Only about 200 people, including credentialed staff, will be allowed in. Debate partner Microsoft Philippines will provide the technology for a virtual and interactive audience.
Well, in coordination with UST as our venue, they have set the health protocols. So there will be testings for all of the staff, the crew, the suppliers, and even security.
Candidates can be accompanied by an entourage of up to 10 people. Everyone has to present a negative COVID test taken within 24 hours, as well as vaccination cards. Mask wearing will be mandatory. 9 presidential and 7 vice presidential candidates have confirmed their attendance. On stage, they'll be standing at least 1 meter apart. There will be no handshakes, while the small crowd in the audience will be discouraged from cheering or heckling. Empty podiums with their names on it will be kept on the stage for candidates who opted to skip the debates.
Being a politician in a democracy means you will be challenged by the opposition all the time. You will be asked difficult questions by the media all the time. You are held up to international scrutiny. If you can't even handle a debate, you probably shouldn't be there.
For 2 hours, those present will battle it out over the pandemic, the economy, corruption, and peace and order, among other big issues. CNN Philippines anchors Rico Hizon and Ruth Cabal will moderate Saturday's vice presidential debate, and Pia Hontiveros and Pinky Webb for the presidential debate on Sunday.
Meron din tayong mga ibang phone-in questions or questions from social media para talagang mapupulsuhan natin yung ground, no? Yung mga issues na talagang, kumbaga yung sinasabi nga natin, malapit sa sikmura, no, ng mamamayan.
The candidates will all be given limited time to answer and rebut opponents with the hopes of keeping their exchanges lively but also civil and respectful. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Police are on hand to secure the UST campus this weekend. Manila Police District Director General Leo Francisco says more than 100 personnel will be deployed to enforce strict security checks starting noontime Saturday, February 26th.
May mga team kami mag-inspect sa venue, may mag-inspect kami sa within the perimeter of the venues. Kailangan talagang prepared kami, kailangan namin masecure yung bawat isa, lalo na yung ating mga kandidato at yung mga taong pupunta doon. So andun pa rin yung pag-maintain ng minimum public health standard, andun pa rin yung pag-wear ng face mask at yung distancing. So yun yung mga titingnan natin sa araw na yun.
Francisco says officials are studying if road closures will be implemented on a section of España Boulevard fronting the venue. He discourages supporters of candidates from staking out outside UST for safety reasons.
Sa lahat ng supporters ng ating mga candidates for Vice President and President, bawal po talagang pumasok sa loob ng UST campus or UST area. Kaya nakikiusap po ang pamunuan ng Manila Police District na para maging maayos po ang lahat, mas magandang hintayin na lang natin sila. Live naman ito na mapapanood sa CNN.
COMELEC has approved CNN Philippines' request for accreditation for its vice presidential and presidential debates this weekend. The approval came during the COMELEC's en banc session this afternoon. CNN Philippines has assured the poll body that it invited all candidates to the debates and complied with health protocols. The network will also submit all documents necessary for this accreditation. So join us as we remain committed to helping the Filipino make an informed choice on May 9th. Catch 7 out of 9 vice presidential candidates in our debate this February 26th, live at the University of Santo Tomas. Watch 9 out of 10 candidates face off at the presidential debate on February 27th, also at UST, only here on CNN Philippines. Coming up, Olympic pole vaulter EJ Obiena makes the country proud again with a victory at the Orlin Copernicus Cup. And listen up, BTS fans, prices and schedules for the K-pop group Seoul concert cinema showing have been released. Details after the break. Welcome back. Pole vaulting sensation EJ Obiena does it again. The Olympian bagged his second gold medal this year, ruling the Orlin Copernicus Cup in Torun, Poland today. Obiena matched his season best, tying his earlier record of 5.81 meters at the Orlin Cup. But Obiena may not get to defend his title at the 31st Southeast Asian Games under the national team. The Athletics Track and Field Association says he's still not in its training pool. K-pop updates now. Pinoys in the BTS army get to watch the Permission to Dance on Stage Seoul concert right here at home. Along with theaters around the world, SM Cinema will show the group's March 12 show straight from South Korea. Tickets will cost more than your average movie at 1,900 pesos. But you get the concert experience in real time for the 4:45 p.m. schedule with an immediate playback at 8:45 p.m. Fans have even more to look forward to with 4 new BTS shows to take place in Las Vegas in the United States. The K-pop group will perform on April 8, 9, 15, and 16 at the Allegiant Stadium. The last show will be streamed online. Still in music, pop stars Camila Cabello and Ed Sheeran are working on another song together again. This time, it's a duet called Bam Bam, coming out on March 4. In a post about the song, Camila calls Ed one of her favorite artists. The two also worked on South of the Border, featuring Cardi B, and an unreleased track called The Boy. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Hontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Does your stomach feel full, tight, or swollen after a meal? Chances are you're probably bloated. Bloating causes the belly to look larger than usual, and it may also feel tender or even painful. It has a lot to do with what you eat and how quickly you eat. On today's program, we'll talk about why and when bloating happens. We want to help you better understand the care you need and deserve. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Bloating can get in the way of work or day-to-day activities, and it's common among both children as well as adults. To talk about this and more, let's welcome our guests. With us is Dr. Eric Yasay. He's a gastroenterologist and clinical associate professor at the UP-PGH. Also with us is Dr. Maricar Esculto-Can. She's an internal medicine specialist and clinical nutritionist from the Makati Medical Center. Now, gas is the most common cause of bloating. It builds up in the digestive tract when you inhale air or when undigested food breaks down. I'll start the discussion first with Dr. Eric. Dr. Eric, what are the causes of increased gasiness? Yung mga common causes nito?
Well, yung bloating nga can represent increased gas production in our body. In the vernacular, it is more commonly described as kabag, empacho, or hindi natunawan. So pinakamadalas, bloatedness or the sensation of feeling of fullness occurs after eating or a drinking spree kapag ka napainom ng marami or nakakain ng madami yung mga pasyente natin. It is caused because of increased acid production and gas formation when our body starts to digest food. No? So yun yung mga most common. And then other than that, of course, we also think about decrease clearance of gas or kung mabagal yung paglabas ng gas sa ating digestive system or kung may blockage dun sa digestive system. These things can either increase your gas production or decrease your clearance of gas in your GI tract.
So is it mainly that? Ganun ba kasimple na pagpapalit mo lang ng bilis ng pagkain? Will this be able to alleviate bloating?
Most commonly, nalipasan niya ng gutom or walang time kumain. That's why ang bilis nating kumain. And sometimes kapag bumabawi, yan yung tinatawag ko sometimes to my patients, actually is the reason why you produce more gas because you have to put out more acid and digest food and then that will give you more gas than more than the speed of eating per se. And then, of course, kapag nagmamadali, you tend to eat in gulps, so mas madami yung nasaswallow na air. So that can also add to that.
But you may also be feeling more bloated than usual these days, and the latest culprit is, of course, stress. Ngayon, Dr. Maricar, paano ba nagkakos ng bloating ang stress? Halos lahat ng tao very stressful nowadays.
Okay, so usually when we are stressed, diba, we tend to seek foods that are salty or sugary, no? Sometimes referred to as your comfort food. So it is another contributory factor to bloatedness, which is the character of the food. So if you will eat foods that are high in sugar and salt, but low in fiber, such as highly processed foods, because they can slow down the transit of the food in the GI tract. So also, when you eat these processed foods, you tend to drink carbonated sodas also, di ba? Yung soft drinks, or some people, sparkling water. So these drinks are infused with carbon dioxide that can aggravate actually the bloatedness.
But I'd like to talk about cigarettes naman and how this affects not just your stomach or bloatedness, but the entire body. Because when smoke is inhaled, it also enters the stomach and it goes through the blood system. The elements of the cigarette goes all the way around the body, and it can cause bloating. Now, my question is, Dr. Maricar, how does cigarettes affect someone's bloatedness?
So perhaps I think it has something to do with the inhaled air that causes the bloatedness whenever a person smokes.
Now, I'd like to talk to Dr. Eric. What other factors do Filipinos commonly do that can contribute to bloating?
Well, madami tayong habits, no, as Filipinos. So we are very fond of buffets. No, well, probably the pandemic has decreased that episodes of buffets, but our eating styles and habits actually can add to the risk of developing bloating. So, madalas tayo nagpapalipas ng gutom when we're busy, and then we overcompensate by eating a lot after when we have time to eat. And then, yun nga, takot tayong magutom eh. Yan yung culture natin eh. So that's why we tend to eat more than we should, and that causes bloating.
Fiber is essential for a healthy diet, and it's best known for its ability to prevent or relieve constipation. But high-fiber food can cause some to produce excessive amounts of gas, causing bloating. Dr. Maricar, what are some examples sa mga pagkain na mataas ang fiber?
Some clues to look for if you want to choose high-fiber food items. So when you see the word whole grain, whole wheat, and bran, whenever you choose your bread, your rice, or your cereal. So that means that you are choosing high-fiber options. In terms of fresh fruits naman, I advise them to choose the fruits that are pulpy or those that are usually eaten with the skin, okay, such as your apples, or fruits with fibrous flesh, such as your pineapples and your mangoes. So for the vegetables naman, they are usually your leafy greens. And of course, you also have your nuts and seeds, which are also included in your high-fiber list.
Now, how does light exercise naman after eating? How can this help reduce that feeling of bloatedness for some people? Now, a lot of people might think exercise, when they think of exercise, it's something really rigid. But a light walk, a short walk, is this a simple activity with a lot of benefits?
Yes, actually, when you do physical activities, such even kumbaga short walks around the block, it can stimulate movement of your bowels, which can facilitate the movement of the trapped air. So it can be helpful.
A lot of our viewers say that ginger naman is also said to reduce bloating. Is there any truth to this, Maricar? Marami bang benefits ang ginger in the form of maybe tea to help those who have frequent bloating episodes after eating?
Actually, I come across 2 studies relating ginger and bloatedness. So basically, the mechanism is that ginger aids in speeding the emptying of the stomach, as well as relieving patients who have functional dyspepsia. So that's the population of the patient that they investigated. But for these studies, what they used are ginger capsules. So the dose is at 1 to 1.5 gram in divided doses per day were used. So the authors of the study also included in the conclusion that ginger tea, so ginger in the form of tea, may also offer similar benefits, but they were not able to do a study using the tea.
Dr. Eric, meron ba kayong mga tips para sa mga viewers para mas ma-minimize ang kanilang feeling of bloatedness pagkatapos
apart from small frequent feeding, no? So wag kumain ng sobrang dami. Tama yung sinabi ni Dr. Maricar, no, to walk, no, because the pull of gravity can help bring down the food to the lower parts of the GI tract. Yung iba kong sinasabi to my patients would be to do a food diary. So what is a food diary? It's a list of food of your triggers. Very important yung food diary because the triggers are different from person to person, no? So hindi naman pwedeng diktahan natin na ito yung one size fits all, na ito yung kakainin at hindi. What actually is more useful is a person to do his or her personal food diary of food triggers so that ito yung mga iiwasan ng food.
Now, bloating is not always from eating too much or too fast, as earlier mentioned, but sometimes there could be a health issue behind it. We'll talk about this and more when we come back. We're together in health. Bloating is usually normal, but it can also be something serious. How will we know if it's just a nuisance or a cause for concern? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where your care comes first. Dr. Eric, what are some of the medical conditions that may cause bloating?
The other conditions that can cause bloating would be mechanical conditions. Ibig sabihin, pag may bara sa digestive tract. No? So this happens when you have inflammation of your GI tract or if you have tumors of your GI tract. Like, for example, if you have colon cancer, the gas gets trapped inside at hindi makababa yung gas doon, and you will feel bloatedness. So another condition would be what we call paralysis of the GI tract. No, we call it ileus scientifically. No, pero a lot of patients who are bedridden, who suffer the stroke, who have severe infections or uncontrolled diabetes will have a slowdown of the movement of the GI tract. Kaya natatrap din yung air inside. No? So these are just some of the medical conditions that have explanations.
Now, a person with food intolerance has a difficulty digesting certain foods. And this is different from a food allergy, which results from an immune system reaction to a specific food. Dr. Maricar, how can a person tell if their bloating is caused by food intolerance?
So actually, there are tests that we can do. I refer my patients for them to have the food intolerance test, so which is actually a blood test wherein the patient's blood will be extracted and then it will be analyzed if they have an intolerance to certain food items. So usually there's a panel of food lists, and then food items are interpreted if they should be eliminated or they can be eaten in moderation by the patient or they can continue to consume these certain food items.
We've been talking about bloating for a while, but a lot of people, when they hear about bloating, they also may associate it, especially women, during the part of their menstrual cycle. Dr. Maricar, is this the same thing? How can a woman tell if it's bloating or weight gain?
Okay, so that's a very challenging question, but perhaps I think the best way to determine if the bloating is just caused by hormonal etiology is to observe if it is associated with other symptoms of your premenopausal symptoms such as mood changes, any discomfort that you feel in the hypogastric area.
Meron bang mga gamot na pwedeng regularly tinitake ng mga tao that may cause bloating?
Yes, so madami talaga. So very common dyan would be your pain relievers. No? So syempre, of course, a lot of them would be over the counter and our patients will not know na these medications actually decrease the protections that we have against acid. Examples of this would be aspirin, mefenamic acid, celecoxib, diclofenac, naproxen. Yan. Very, very common yan sa amin to see patients with that. And then the other medications that sometimes are over the counter and are abused would be the medications against diarrhea. Of course, di ba kapag may diarrhea ka, mabilis yung paghilab ng tiyan mo, you want to stop that. No? So that's why you take Buscopan or Imodium or loperamide. No? So this naman has the side effect of paralyzing your GI tract and then hence trapping air and causing bloatedness.
Okay, so temporary bloating shouldn't be a cause or worry, but anyone with bloating accompanied by other symptoms should see a doctor. When we come back, what else can you do about your bloating concerns? Stay with us. Your health is our mission. In most cases, the symptoms of bloating can be prevented by adopting a few healthy lifestyle changes. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're your connection to healthcare. Swallowing air can be one reason why you're bloating, and there are a number of things that you can also avoid. And one of those we've been talking about is carbonated drinks, for example. Dr. Maricar, we've been talking about carbonated drinks, bawal ito, high salt, high sugary foods. What else? What other common foods do Filipinos eat na nakakapag-contribute sa bloating?
Actually, isa sa hindi namin na-mention kanina, yung chewing of gum. Usually, it also causes bloatedness because when you chew gum, you also swallow air. Eating in a rush. So, yon, kumbaga contributory din, which I think it was already mentioned na rin kanina.
Okay, now when it comes to home remedies, Dr. Maricar, meron ba kayong masasuggest sa mga viewers for those who feel simple bloating for that matter? Is there something at home that they can do to relieve that sensation?
Okay, so aside from the dietary factors which we have already discussed, so some experts may also recommend to do certain exercises, di ba? Even at home. Kasi even if we encourage the patient to walk, it's difficult with our current restrictions. Okay, so there are some experts who say that there are certain yoga poses that the person can do to facilitate the relaxation of the hips and lower back, to facilitate the release of the gas that build up in the colon. So there are also abdominal massages that can be done. So usually it is done in a circular clockwise motion, starting from the right anterior hip bone, going up across the rib cage, and then down to the left anterior hip bone and across the hypogastric area or the puson area. So you can do circular motions. But I would just like to remind that if you will do these exercises, at least give your stomach a time to empty. So that usually takes mga 2 to 3 hours. So if after that interval, you still feel uncomfortable and you still feel that there is trapped air in your tummy, so you can try to do these maneuvers at home.
Okay, very good advice. First time I heard of those exercises. I'm going to try that next time I feel bloated. Now, Dr. Eric, the whole point of trying to relieve the symptoms of bloating is try to let the gas out, try to release that gas. But are there medications that you prescribe your patients who have a more difficult time, those with bloating sensations that last for more than 2 to 3 hours?
We first try to analyze what causes the bloating. So if it's hyperacidity, we give antacids, or and acid suppressants. So if there's a motility problem, ibig sabihin hindi gumagalaw talaga yung bituka, we can give prokinetics. So some of this would be, our viewers will be more familiar with Plasil, like metoclopramide and domperidone, or motilium. So these are just some of the medications that can make your GI tract move. Others would be yung mga antispasm naman. This would be, of course, relying on a diagnosis. So it's very important na before you self-medicate, you try to analyze first kung ano talaga yung nararamdaman, especially if you have alarm symptoms na bumabara yung bituka.
Dr. Maricar, before we go, do you have any advice for our viewers with regards to the proper diet or what kind of diet para ma-minimize naman ang bloating?
We usually recommend talaga an individualized diet approach. Okay, so we emphasize that there is no one-size-fits-all diet. We can give you the general recommendations as we have mentioned earlier. But if you want a more tailor-fit or customized diet, so you can keep a food diary and then you can consult a registered nutritionist dietitian. You can show them the food diary so that they can prepare a good diet plan that is appropriate based on your condition.
And Dr. Eric, any parting words or advice for our viewers when it comes to minimizing bloatedness?
Well, ako, siguro probably aside from stopping smoking would be your food habits. No? So be aware that we want small frequent feedings. Don't skip your meals. Yan naman yung usual advice. And then of course, when you develop alarm symptoms, seek consult right away.
And we're glad you could have joined us here on Med Talk Health Talk. Thank you, gastroenterologist Dr. Eric Yasay and clinical nutritionist Dr. Maricar Esculto-Can. Bloating is rarely a symptom of something serious. For most people, the remedy is simple. Control portion sizes, eat less fats, and eat slow enough, as well as stop smoking. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're here to help build a healthier future for you.
Rinibong estudyante na ang natabangang makagraduar.
Ako po ay nagpapasalamat kay Congressman Elizalde Esco dahil isa po ako sa libo-libong estudyante na natulungan sa pamamagitan ng educational assistant.
Ginatus na nagtatrabaho sa laong asinluwas ka nasyon.
Dakula po ang sakuyang pasalamat. Nagbubuokan ako Bicol Party List. Kung bako pong dahil sa indang tabang na naitao, bako po ako ngunyan sarong maestra na nag-iserbe asin nagatabang sa mga kaakian na sa indamang pagklase.
Ako Bicol Party List, katabang na, kasurug pa.
Nanlalabo na ba ang inyong mga paningin? O kailangan mo ng proteksyon laban sa radiation? Ano pa ang hindi hintay nyo? Pumunta na sa The Vintage Optical. Ang optical para sa lahat. Visit us at the ground floor, Gaisano Capital, Barangay San Roque, Iriga City. We offer free computerized eye examination, free frame, lente lang ang babayaran. Starts at 999 complete eyeglasses with anti-radiation lens. The Vintage Optical, the widest selection of optical signature frames and sunglasses. The Vintage Optical, ang optical para sa lahat. CNN Philippines Hour sa RPN-DZKI-IRIGA alas 6 hasta alas 7 ng manggi, Lunes hanggang Biyernes. CNN Philippines Hour.